figure out what your strengths are if you're kind of coming up, and then play to that, and then try to delegate everything else.
Today we've got Tristan Adkins and Matt Reid at Adkins and Reid Holdings. They are Arkansas homebuyers. They are crushing it.
Office for us, I do feel like made a big difference.
100%.
You're probably more driven than I am, John, but there'd be some times where I would just be on my phone, 30 minutes go by, I'm like, shit, man, I just wasted 30 minutes of a work day. I can see what Matt's doing, Matt can see what I'm doing, and we can hold each other accountable.
Dictate the culture.
Yeah.
Someone's not doing what they need to do, we can call that out a lot faster.
And we're going to dive into today is uncovering your constraint in your business. And I also want to spend some time diving into how does the visionary and integrator work inside of your business. Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. I'm your host, John Lallande, a seasoned real estate investment expert and former Marine recon sniper. This podcast is designed for those seeking effective strategies to increase revenue growth through strategic hiring, leadership, and effective tracking. Our focus here is clear and direct. We provide actionable insights from successful founders and growth experts. Whether you're establishing a new business or aiming to scale an existing one, our episodes offer the essential advice you need for practical business growth. Lock and load, zero in, and get ready to scale. Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. Today we've got Tristan Adkins and Matt Reid at Adkins and Reid Holdings. Now they buy houses out of Alabama. No, I'm just kidding. I always like to mess with them that they buy houses out of Alabama. They are Arkansas homebuyers. They are crushing it. They run a full team. And we're going to dive into today is uncovering your constraint in your business. How do you identify the constraint in your business? How do you solve that? And I also want to spend some time diving into how does the visionary and integrator work inside of your business? Because a lot of people try partnerships and they don't work. And I can tell you out of seeing, hundreds of businesses, this is one of them that really works well. So we're going to go into both of them. Tristan, Matt, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Peace.
All right. Well, let's jump in. So can you kind of walk us through how long have you guys actually been wholesaling, flipping, like doing real estate? What does that look like for both of you guys?
Different story for me and Matt. I'll kind of talk on my end, and then Matt, you can just kind of hop in on that train when it kind of hits your way, if that makes any sense. So basically end of 2018, probably beginning of 2019, I get involved. Somehow I get in touch with a guy that's wholesaling virtually. He's out of Arizona, and I end up convincing him to let me be his acquisitions guy because he had a coaching group that he was working on having people get into. I just said, listen, what I don't have is money, but what I do have is time. Let me do 100% commission basis, so your risk is nothing other than just get me trained up. So that's how I got involved. And then that kind of led to me going into war zones and this buying houses for $3,000 and selling them for $6,000. And then I kind of got scared doing that. So I figured, why not maybe focus a little bit more in our backyard. So started doing that. Me and Matt got kind of connected, stars aligned. Essentially, we met at a meetup. Matt was a project manager, project engineer at the time, and he was managing 7 and 8 figure projects. And I'm thinking, sweet Jesus, I can find the opportunities and create the chaos, but don't get me managing 7 different contractors. So at that time, and still today, markets we operate in are pretty rural, a little bit tougher to find buyers, very, very aggressive buyers. And so I was finding these deals and I was like, well, maybe we could take these down ourselves and team up. So that's kind of how that progressed. And we bought our first house end of 2020. Still have that rental house.
So Matt, how did you and Tristan connect then? Tell me a little bit about your story. Getting into real estate, did this guy just kind of sell you like he sells everybody else and tell you to come quit your job and come join him to take over the world? Or what did that look like?
Yeah, basically Tristan was like, hey, I'm super fun to hang out with. Just come hang out and you should quit your job today. And then,
and then you did it.
Well,
he sold you.
Boom, that easy. Just as easy as getting a deal under contract. Well, no. Basically, yeah, we had the meetup. We met there. Tristan sold me a flip house, flipped that thing around like within a month, had it sold. I was an engineer in a past life.
That was a really good deal for you too.
It was a really good deal.
How much you make on that deal? Spill the beans.
I had a partner in it, and we ended up splitting it a couple ways. We ended up splitting the profit, but overall profit was $60,000, and then I had a 50-50 partner. I ended up walking away with just a tick over $30,000.
Nice. Okay.
And we turned that deal around in like a month and had it sold. This was right whenever market was steamy hot.
Yeah.
So,
Interest
um,
rates are rock bottom.
yeah. So
Tornado came through.
it
No
was
housing.
it was super easy to sell. But anyways, I was an engineer making over six figures in my position. And, me and Tristan had bought multiple apartments at this point. I don't remember how many units we had, but basically we were buying multifamily whenever I left my position at Nestle. And so I went in to tell my boss that I'm leaving my job. I gave him a couple months notice, and I shit you not, I went like this, like that, and my phone is ringing. My phone's buzzing. And who's on the other end? It's Tristan Adkins. And he's like, hey, this deal, this 45 unit apartment complex we've been trying to close on for months. We didn't think we were going to close on it. And I just told my boss that I was leaving my job. He said, we got the clear to close on that deal. If that ain't a sign from God, the heavens, whoever in the hell you be praying to at night, then I don't know what is. So then I left my job in 2021. And then we were still buying apartments until 2022. And then we started really diving into single family in end of 2022, 2023, and then to now, basically.
So let's talk about the beginning. So 2022 comes around and you guys are starting a wholesaling business, but Tristan, you kind of were already wholesaling a little bit, right? It sounds like you were wholesaling some deals.
Yep.
And then Matt was doing, his own flips. You guys were buying apartments together. How did you guys game plan a partnership?
It was pretty simple. I mean, I had read Rocket Fuel. I'd given the book to him. I kept it as simple as I possibly could of like, hey, I can see the direction. I can see where I want to go and where the opportunities are. But when it comes to execution and getting certain like very detailed tasks taken care of, I was not very good at getting those accomplished. I can't get into an Excel sheet and build macros and track, build out the systems to track the correct KPIs or diagnose, what's going on in the process and then come up with a execution of it. So it was a combination of like reading Rocket Fuel and then also a combination of reading Principles by Ray Dalio of like, how does evolution work? You have a goal, you come into a pain point. What's the root cause of that pain point? Let's come up with a solution and then let's execute on it. I would always get to, okay, I feel like I've got it diagnosed. I feel like I've got a good game plan. And then when it came to the execution, I'm a little bit ADHD and a very, very linear lateral thinker. And so I would always get to it and then a shiny object would catch my eye or I'd bring my head against the wall where there's a certain thing I just cannot figure out. And then I'd be like, I'd get stuck. And so that's kind of where I was like, okay, I know my weaknesses. I think I know his strengths and weaknesses. Matt's extremely humble. The core values aligned and the strengths and weaknesses aligned. And so it just made more sense for us to try to tag team this together.
Yeah. And if you want to see if this is a perfect example of the difference between me and Tristan. That's his answer to the question. This is my answer to the question. Basically, it's like, hey, I like what you have to offer. Let's dip our toes in first. And so it was like, okay, let's buy a property together. We'll put both of our names on the title and let's make it work. And so we bought our first property that Tristan was talking about. We bought in 2020. That went well. We did another one a couple of months later. Then we did another one. And then it's like, okay, like we can make something of this, And so then we doubled down. And then, obviously he's more of the visionary type of role and I'm more of the integrator role. And we went to an attorney. They drafted up everything. And then we just freaking sit next to each other in an office and constantly trading ideas and really driving to get shit done all the time.
I love that. If you had to explain, like from Matt, I want to hear your principles that you took away from Rocket Fuel. And then obviously, when visionaries read Rocket Fuel, they're like, this makes so much sense. Like it almost feels like it was written for visionaries. At least when I read it, it might feel like that. But what did you take away from Rocket Fuel where you're like, okay, I could see this combination working well and I know my role in the position?
Basically, biggest takeaway I would say is to like do your best to stay in your lane. Like I would say that I've got a lot of ideas, but this is where ego comes into play because at the end of the day, Tristan is the one that's really pushing the business forward with ideas and whatnot. And this AI thing that's going on is a perfect example. I've been very bearish with AI, but we've run some tests with it actually today, and I was honestly liking the results. But like that goes back to say, like, stay in your lane and like let the visionary do their thing and really focus on integrating and pulling back whenever comes necessary, because it's really easy to read that type of book, because most people that are reading that book are people that are wanting to start a business, and most people that are wanting to start a business are more than likely a visionary.
Yeah.
And I would say that I'm a visionary compared to most people. Most people are, not willing to take the risk on starting a business. So it's kind of hard to check your ego sometimes, but it is definitely better. Like Tristan is the face of our business. Like, I have no problem with that. Like, it's all for the betterment of the company.
And it's funny because a lot of people think, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before. I've been in bad partnerships where this is the case, where everybody wants to be the visionary because the visionary doesn't have to do any work. Now, I know you guys, and I know how the way that you operate your business, and I know that's not the case in your operation, but that is the fear when you meet a visionary. Is you meet the guy, it's like, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we wholesale? Operator, you go run the wholesale business, and I'm going to go off and try to figure out another way to make money, right? So Tristan, tell me, as the quote unquote visionary of the business, how are you able to manage, obviously you still need to do things inside the business. A good visionary does. A good CEO of the business, they're constantly working on things. How are you able to manage that? And then how does Matt check you when you have big ideas that you think are great but are probably really stupid? Because I know that those come too.
Yeah, those come more often than not.
Yeah, they definitely come.
So, there's different models of framework you can go about it. But if you want to start at the highest level and kind of work your way down, the business is simple, the execution is difficult, and it can get very nuanced. And so starting at the simplest basics, this business at the highest level is just marketing and sales. And if you want to compartmentalize it, you've got acquisitions. Well, starting at the beginning, you've got marketing, acquisitions, and dispositions. And so one thing we're talking about things that I'm doing well. I would prefer to talk about things I don't do well too. Like, one thing that is a very easy mistake to make, and I make it all the time, is to overcomplicate things. Meet things where they're at and keep it as simple as possible to get the result that you're wanting. Because for me, it's so much easier to add to than to cut the fat and to really scale it back. And so that's one acknowledgement that I've had here lately, is like, it's not adding to is sometimes not the best thing. Sometimes it's simplifying and getting back to its core essence, but we're always testing out different things and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. So I look at it in 3 columns. What are we doing in marketing? What are we doing in acquisitions? What are we doing in dispositions? And if you can, identify the biggest constraint, which we've talked about this before. Identify the biggest constraint, because if you're looking at it like a pipeline, right, and it's 3 compartments, if you've got water flowing at full capacity, but from stage 1 to stage 2, if that's all bottled up where only 5% of that water is getting through, it doesn't matter if stage 2 and stage 3 it's completely opened up and you're wanting to just fix a little bit of plaque, just a little bit of it. It doesn't matter. You got to fix, that very beginning wall to get the water flowing out. So you've got to be able to identify the biggest constraints. And sometimes, that takes coming up with a hypothesis, and sometimes it's not the biggest constraint in the business. But if it's usually one of the top ones, it definitely will help you move forward. So, you start with a fundamental understanding of, hey, where do I think the biggest constraint is? And then also, part of the job too for me is like, I'm constantly researching, I'm constantly diving in, I'm constantly hopping on sales calls with different vendors or different solutions and grilling them of like, hey, what is it that you're seeing? What are you seeing best practices from other people? Kind of like the Sam Walton approach. I think Sam was excellent at research. He famously said he never came up with an idea himself, but he didn't need to, because all the other good ideas are already out there. He just had to find them. And so, that's a big approach on my end. And then also he was really good about keeping a good culture, energizing folks, and then keeping just a doggone eye on the numbers and making sure we're doing well. So yeah, it's setting culture, it's identifying constraints, it's doing research and development, and of course I'm in the business too. So I'm still playing in the dispositions role. I'm still, me and Matt are still. He's kind of keeping an eye on the numbers, and I'm coming in and helping on coaching on sales calls. And then with the marketing side, it's like, what are there other avenues where we can get a better return on our ad spend and also a solid return on our time spent. So that's a constant testing out, as you know. Some things just don't work out. Cut that, add stuff that is working, and then you're keeping an eye on that consistently. So hopefully that answers your question.
And Matt, as an operator in the business, right? Tristan just went over kind of what his focuses are, doing research. I do want to dive back into simplifying, because I think that that's something that's a lot of times overlooked. We look at how can we add more and add more and add more. And then before you know it, we've got a overly complex business that's producing mediocre results, right? What are you doing on the day-to-day, Matt, to make sure that as the operator, the COO, like, what are you doing to make sure everything is running smoothly?
So obviously, like, every day I check our numbers, and like if I see that numbers are not being logged correctly, like today on our morning call, like I let the team know, like, hey, looks like numbers were not logging correctly yesterday. Everybody needs to go in there and get their shit right.
When you say your numbers, can you unpack what you mean? Because like some people know what your numbers are and some people don't. If they're starting a wholesaling business, they're starting a flipping business, what numbers are you tracking?
Okay, so, part of this is contributed to you and some of the things we've learned from you. But like, we look at the number of new leads we get in every day at the top of the funnel, then number of qualified leads, which is basically people that own the home and want to sell the house, then the number of appointments set, and then the number of appointments that were attended, and then number of offers, number of contracts, and then number of deals closed. So yesterday, for whatever reason, the KPIs were not logging properly. So you want to maintain proper ratios on all of those things, because that's kind of like where you figure out where your bottleneck is in your company, kind of like what Tristan was talking about a second ago.
What else are you looking at, like on a day-to-day? So you look at the key metrics that matter in the business. What else does a good operator need to take into consideration to actually help the business scale and run, more importantly, because you can't scale if it's not running efficiently in the first place?
Yeah, so like one thing I'm doing right now, we're working on bringing in some new data and cold calling. So, I'm not the best on the phone, but like the past couple of days, I've actually been diving in and seeing what our current process is like before I hand it over to someone and tell them how to do it. So like I've been going in and I've made several changes to our CRM already, just based off of like the conversations I've had and like how I think it would flow better. Like if we did this, like I'm moving things around so that way they can see everything that they need to see so they can operate efficiently. I'm going in, updating workflows so that way things flow easily. Then that's just because we're about to implement a new process. And I want to be familiar with it before we start teaching our team on it and we just hand it to them. Otherwise, we're just going to hand them this freaking cobbled together CRM with no training on it. And Tristan and I, you can't expect excellence from that, because if you put crap in, you get crap out. So
what is a good process for delegation? If you want to delegate something to somebody, why not just, I don't know, let them just figure it out? What is a good process to actually say, okay, if I'm going to pass this off to somebody, this needs to happen before I do?
Well, and I think it depends on your goals. So like in regards to this CRM thing, like I could delegate that and pay someone to build our CRM. That isn't what I necessarily want to do, or that's not where Tristan and I really want to spend our money. And then in regards to like delegating cold calling, and whenever you delegate anything, whether it be property managers, people on your team, a contractor, you hire anybody to do anything, it all comes down to how you set expectations and how clearly defined your expectations are. So if I hand them this CRM, for example, and they need to be making phone calls on it, and there's no deliverables that are set, There's no flow. There's no, got to do this and then you do this. Then they're going to get in there. They're going to make some phone calls and then I'm going to be getting problems. That's all I'm going to get out of that is problems. And it's the same thing whenever you're managing contractors, property managers, everything. If you do not have a clear set of goals and deliverables and processes laid out for them to achieve / go on, then it could go awry very quickly.
I do have one caveat I'd like to add to that, and we're not there yet. We're still, in the grand scheme of things, we're still extremely early days. And I think that the higher the caliber of the hire, the more generic your goals can. And, right now we are in a position to be able to pay top dollar for top talent. So we're kind of trying to develop talent in-house that kind of meets where our wages are at. So it's a little bit of a slower process, but we feel like, we do our job very well. We pour into them, they'll pour into us, and then we can set ourselves up for long-term success. Because just like it's a higher risk, test. It's like you spend $20,000 in PPL or whatever, a PPC campaign. If that doesn't produce any results, that can be pretty hurtful. So that's kind of our approach. And as we grow and continue to build long-term free cash flow, that's going to be a priority of mine, at least, is to really try to find the absolute best talent to bring in.
And what I love about what you guys are talking about is a balance, because there's two types of people that I've ran into. There's micromanagers, and then there's people that are undermanaging. And so I've met these hardcore, I would call them visionary types, that think that they are going to hire somebody to just build the business for them, do all of the work. And although, yes, there are people that will go, if you're running $100 million business, okay, well, you go steal a CEO that's running a $200 million business. You pay him, you compensate him better, and then he will help you scale yours. When you are at that point, that is doable. But what a lot of people mess up is they start the startup phase. They have no product. They have no real vision. They have no clear, really even idea on what their business does and how they deliver on it. And they expect to go find people to do it all for them. And I've seen that fail over and over and over. And especially when they undercompensate the person that's supposed to be doing that. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go find somebody on a $40,000 to $60,000 a year salary to be my sales manager, and they're going to hire my sales reps, build out my sales processes, hire my cold callers, train the cold callers, get them the cold calling systems built out, do all of these things. And then one of two things has happened from what I've seen in my experience. Number one, what happens is they completely fail, which they should, because they have no idea how to do these things. And it's not even their business. They don't have enough ownership to want to do that on that salary, right? Yeah. They don't have the skills. They're not the CEO. Like the CEO might not have the skills, but it's your job to go figure them out when you're an owner in the business, right? That's your entire job. That's one thing that happens. The second thing is they realize the person I'm working for isn't actually doing anything in this business. Why do I want to, they're not even building other opportunities for me to scale. So they're not providing any value to me. And the relationship between an employee and an owner is mutual. Right? It's a mutual relationship. You need to be providing them for opportunities and ways for them to accomplish them. And then they are going to be helping you accomplish them, right? That's the mutual relationship that you have. And so what I love that you guys are talking about, I often compare two kind of polar opposite books. One is Who Not How. If you ever read Who Not How, it's like, hey, just go find a bunch of people to build your business for you. There's definitely some good principles that you can take, especially giving people ownership of the task that they have or of the project that they have or the metric that they need to improve on. Right. There's 100% validity in that. And then there's the E-myth, which is like, I am going to build out processes like McDonald's so I can pull somebody with a GED off the streets and they can figure out exactly what to do. And there's a duality between the two, right? You can go and just do, okay, I'm going to go hire these high level people, especially if you've got the money, you've got the salaries, those people can really help you. And at the beginning, you might not have these people. So what you guys are doing inside your business is you're developing leaders, right? You might not be able to pay for top talent. You might not be able to go afford a CEO who's ran a $10 million a year wholesale business. And honestly, like quite frankly, why would he want to come work for your business right now anyway, unless you're giving him a large equity stake and you see something in the market that nobody else sees, right? So I love that you guys are talking about actually developing people inside your organization until you get the right people, the right talent. Okay, well, let me give you what success looks like. These are the expectations. This is how we know when the project is done. And these are the metrics that you need to hit to be able to get there. Once you move up, well, now you're in charge of helping other people hit these metrics. And then you move up and up and up until where you can say, hey, our goal is to increase our revenue by 10% this year. Go out and do it, right? If you go tell your cold caller to do that right now, nothing's going to happen inside your business.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
So I love,
get worse.
It probably will get worse. So I love how you guys are building it out. I want to go back to something that you said that is often overlooked. And I have been so guilty of this in the past, which is simplifying instead of adding more. What did you mean by that, Tristan?
Well, I mean, this is something that we really got from you, John. If you've got a foundation, it's so much easier to say, I want to go in these 4 directions and add all of it to the business today. And that's my type of that's my personality. I have zero patience and shiny object syndrome, which is not good at all. That's a bad combo. So for me, it's really easy to try to do a bunch of stuff and add to what we're already doing. One thing that we're seeing on your end is you run a very successful, pretty lean operation doing one thing and getting really good. I'll leave it at that. I was going to say something else on top of that to make it sound even better, but you guys are doing really good doing that one thing. And like for us, we've definitely been guilty and we still are guilty of doing 6 things, right? 6 things of like W-2s. We're buying properties where we got a short-term rental we're testing out, where we've got seller finance deals we've got going out. Apartments that, and so I think there's a time and place, just like how you brought it up, of how do you find that balance of that duality? And I couldn't have said it any better than what you said it. And I think it's kind of the same thing with the business journey. The smartest thing is when you have limited resources is to pour all those resources into, one thing that can really reap a lot of success. A mindset difficulty for me personally, if we want to kind of dive into the beliefs, is it's scary. It feels like you're basically going all in on black. And we've talked about it. What happens if the laws change? It really assignments really get cracked down on. Well, now your whole business is gone, poof. It's like you're selling well oil one day and the light bulb comes on the next day and now you're out of the job. So, part of me wants to do that where it's like all in on one thing, one exit strategy and get really good. And then the other part of me is like, well, wait a minute, if this gets cracked down and this is not a viable exit strategy, now we have not poured any resources into other strategies that could insulate us and keep us protected. So that's something I'd love to hear your thoughts on, John.
There is a blend to that too, right? Because there's a reason that BlackBerry's out of business and, Apple is one of the most profitable companies in the world right now. And there is a time to adjust for sure. There's a camera company, the guys that did the little film, like the little film pictures, and they never went digital.
Kodak?
It might have been Kodak. Kodak is probably still in business. So I don't know if it was them, but it was a company that actually filed bankruptcy because they just were like, no, we sell film. We sell film and we make a lot of money. And then the market just started to outpace them. So there is a balance of being able to know when you need to pivot and seeing when someone else, okay, the rest of the market is starting to get ahead of us, right? But I don't think that most of us are there. I think that a lot of us look for a bunch of different distractions because we're always looking at what if, and we need to quote unquote diversify instead of getting better at the one thing that we're really good at. And so I've been there, right? I have apartment complexes. At one point I had a 11 unit Airbnb that all of them were being rented on short-term rental. I had long-term rentals. I had a hotel. I had single families that we were buying, subject to, we were doing fix and flips. I was doing mortgage and I was doing wholesaling, and I was completely stressed out of my mind. None of my businesses were ever getting any better. They were all staying the same, right? And so Elon Musk quotes it better than anyone, which is, we like to take away and make it as simple as possible until it literally doesn't work anymore. And then we start to add back on till it works again. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why the Teslas are so sleek, right? They take everything away. They take the handles, they take everything away and just make it so simple until it literally doesn't work. And then they go, okay, let's do one step more to where it works. They do the same thing with rockets, because Elon understands one of the most important principles is that complexity breeds problems, right? The more complexity, when you're doing cold calling, you're doing PPL, you're doing PPC, you're doing YouTube, you're doing SEO. All of those things are points that can break inside of your business.
Yep.
Right. And it's constantly putting out fires. Where if you look at some of the best, not even wholesaling businesses, but businesses in general, they do one thing and they do it very well. So they're just always improving on that one thing. Right. And so, especially if you're getting from 0 to $1 million in revenue in a wholesaling business, you don't need to focus on, 15 different things and bring in revenue in 15 different ways. You need to focus on what is the thing that generates you the biggest return? How long does it take you to get that return? Because if you get 200% over 5 years, okay, well, can we get 10% month over month? Right? What does that do? How does that compound in comparison? And figuring that out has allowed me to just go, okay, this is the thing that I need to focus on in my business that's going to give me ultimately the biggest return on the capital that I have, right? And so that's been my theory, and it's helped me. And I love that you guys are implementing it as well. Is how do we simplify instead of always adding more? Because you can add more until everything is just okay. Everything is just decent, and you don't have anything that you do really well.
I love it. I can agree with every bit of that.
Let's talk about some of the things that you guys have learned inside the program. And I want to talk about going from 2022 to 23. Let's talk some numbers, revenue wise, what changed, and then 23 to 24. And then going into the next year, like what's the plan? So 2022, what did the business look like for you guys? What were you guys averaging a month on volume and deals?
We were mostly focused on apartments.
Okay.
So I don't know how many apartments.
We went to 120 something doors in about 18 months. Issue is that we had no income to show for it. So we shouldn't have been able to buy those properties basically. And so anywho, that was kind of 2022. We had one marketing company we were working with that was just sending out text, and we might have been locking up a deal every 60 days. And it was a flip. Well, the market was so hot, you could just shine a turd and the thing's going for, it's going for every bit of $1,000. So that's where we were at. We're like, man, this isn't too bad. We can just do a flip every 60, 90 days, make 30 or 40,000, not have to put any attention into it. And then rates.
Pour all that into apartments.
Pour all of it into apartments.
That was literally our strategy.
Yeah. And that was 2022. 2023 hit. And I don't know if you want to pull up a quick P&L or not, but we had into 2022, we saw the writing on the wall. We kind of made the decision, okay, interest rates are coming up. We aren't sure when these are going to come down. And so, we don't have the infrastructure where we can just continue to buy these multifamily, and we weren't really paying ourselves super well. We were basically trying to put every last penny into building the equity side up. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, okay, we got to find a way where we can pay ourselves consistently and have consistent cash flow and actually run a very profitable business. Because when we first got into it, we thought, you own these buildings, man, you're going to be, that you can just live off the cash flow and drink pina coladas on the beach. And, we were just wet behind the ears. And so we realized, it's really not that much cash flow that people make it out to be. They're great investments, but it's really great investment if you have active income to, use the depreciation to offset that. So we kind of realized, well, shit, we're kind of going ass backwards here in regards to really trying to build up our passive income side first and not build up the active income side. So we really said, okay, into 2022, this is our focus. This is what we want to do. So 2023 to end of 2023 that year, what I think we might have did 400,000 in gross revenue?
So I'll sum it up. Basically, 2022, we really weren't even focused on single family.
Yeah.
And we did 12 or 13 deals and we made that amount of money. 2023, we poured all of our focus into it and we were focusing on getting deals done in 2023. We made the same amount of money, but we literally did 2.5 times as many deals.
We weren't flipping hardly any. We weren't buying a lot
Yeah.
ourselves. So we were sending them out their assignments or novation trying to just survive because things are slowing way down.
So we like more than doubled our workload in regards to single family, but we didn't make any more money. And so
What was
it
that
like
top line?
the top line,
450,000 gross.
2023?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now we're probably crunching.
we've more than doubled it year to date.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And so we're in October right now. So we're 10 months in,
Yep.
October 11th. And you guys are at almost 900,000 or
Fair
over
to say.
900,000
Yeah.
for the year.
That's
Wow.
not including the rents that we've got. And that would be another roughly 500,000 or so.
Wow.
Revenue.
So let's talk. That is doubling your business in 10 months is not easy. What changed? What did you guys implement? Let's get into some tactical stuff for you
What
guys.
didn't we
think
change? Everything changed, John.
Let's talk about it.
Well, I think it's funny how it changed because what started out, we started spending more in marketing. And I think it's funny because we didn't have any metrics in regards to monitoring our marketing. And this goes right back to talking about deliverables we were talking about earlier.
We took a risk. We took a huge risk, John.
Yeah.
We maxed out our credit cards. We went into a coaching group and maxed out the marketing spend. And we're like,
And
this
then
better work.
We held on for dear life
Yeah.
with all this marketing spend with no metrics and literally rewrote it like a damn wild bull and did our best to lock up deals. And we've locked up a decent number of deals, but we've also increased our overhead by a decent amount as well.
We built infrastructure. So we got tied into the first thing was we realized we don't know what the hell we're doing. And that I think that's a sign of a good leader is knowing what you're competent at, knowing where you're not competent at. And so I tried to I talked to guys that I knew from Memphis that I had done business with. I was like, hey, listen, there's multiple coaching groups out there. What coaching group provided the most value to you? Because I was trying to get a read on prioritizing what the best education was out there. Mm-hmm. And so I got some work back, and I had a good experience. I'll say the name.
Level Up, huh?
No, it wasn't even Level Up. It was Josh and Tiffany before Level Up.
Okay.
And Josh.
That was at the end of 2022.
Yeah. And we realized, oh, wow, okay, this is actually how you run a business. Like, here's metrics, here's processes, here's SOPs, here's how you think about things. Here's an actual like marketing tracker. And before then, we didn't really have any of that. We were just like, oh, we can make 30,000 on this flip. Let's just do it. And they were just selling. So that took a lot. And one of the interesting things is like when you get into a good coaching program, you realize all the things you don't know and you realize how much more money you have to spend to get to a higher level. And so we implemented a lot of it. We weren't able to implement all of it. And so we decided, okay, well, what else is out there? And we got
involved. So that got you 2022, 2023. That got you guys to hit 450.
No, that made us do more deals, same amount of money.
Yeah.
So you did more deals, but you didn't about the same amount.
We essentially spent more money and learned how to do more deals, make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily the goal. So then that brings you to 2020. So that was what you did in 2022.
Yeah. And then we joined basically. Yeah, Chandler's group kind of was, I guess, at the end of 2023 going into 2024. And what I really appreciated about that group is like a lot of good things about Josh and Tiffany's group. I mean, we learned a lot. One emphasis point of feedback that we had that, we wanted to have a different experience moving forward was that like they had coaches that were kind of the feedback, filters. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be in another group, I want to hear directly from the source. Like, from the person that actually pulled the levers, made it happen. Yeah. And so Chandler's group came up and learned a lot there. And, one of the key things there was like, dude, you're just operating at the first principles levels. Like, dude, the market you're in, you're fighting you're going against a freaking headwinds. It's like trying to sell marketing to newspapers. Like you need to be in better markets. And with being in better markets, you're naturally going to get your deal size up. And so we took that to heart. We got into different markets, and then we did one of the biggest deals we've done personally as a flip. Wasn't as assignment, but we're still learning. To do more assignments, but so that's been good. So now we're kind of in better markets. We've got infrastructure lined up. We've got acquisitions guys that we have in place right now, and we've got a lot of structure in place for our guys. And I feel like we've got a pretty decent culture, and we've got an office too. An office for us, I do feel like made a big difference.
Yes, 100%.
Because I know for me, you're probably more driven than I am, John, but there'd be some times where I would just be on my phone, 30 minutes go by, I'm like, shit, man, I just wasted 30 minutes of a work day just, lollygagging, finger up my ass. And now we're in the office together. I can see what Matt's doing. Matt can see what I'm doing. I can see what Armando's doing or Joe's doing or Mason, and we can hold each other accountable. And feed off that energy. So
dictate the culture
a lot. Yeah, it's a lot easier to manage too. Like someone's not doing what they need to do, we can call that out a lot faster.
And so you went from 450, pretty profitable, 450, or sorry, less than 450, but decently profitable, 450, same amount of profit. And then what big changes, this is what I want to know, is the levers that you pulled in 2024, because you guys are now at, double the revenue. How are you guys doing on profit margins in your business today?
Roughly 20%.
So you guys are double the revenue, and you're increasing about the same profit margin as you were.
Yeah. I would say the main levers we've pulled is we have a much better grasp on our numbers. Number one, like we know our numbers. You ask me what a number is, I can find it and within very fast. Second thing is coming into the office and everybody working together, because our feedback loop is insane. And we have got the best team, I feel like, because our acquisitions guys, like if Joe hears a call or some way Armando can improve, whenever he gets off that call, Joe, there's literally no hesitancy from our team to give each other feedback. Whereas if we were remote,
you would never get that.
No, never. Other thing, training and sales training is huge.
Great acquisitions process, which you helped with that, John.
Right. Yes. The acquisitions process and acquisitions training is insanity.
Getting into better markets. We were doing more flips. We had a really good Q2, Q3. Right now our pain point is in Q4, Q1, that side slows way down. And so if we can build up that network of buyers and maintain the deal spreads where we need to be at, we're going to be in really good shape, and flips are going to be basically cherries on top.
Right.
And so that's the balancing act that we've got going on, because we have found we've got a decent idea of where the sweet spots are for the flips. And then, now we need to kind of find where the sweet spot is for the assignments where we can get the deal spread. And if we can basically tag team those, keep those going on. But I don't see us not ever flipping. I just see us flipping only like cherry picking the absolute best where we have the highest confidence. And that may not mean the biggest margins, but if there's 5 comps all in that neighborhood selling for that price, and we can get a decent base hitter, double hitter, like I'll do that deal because of the confidence,
And I want to dive into, so you mentioned sales process was a big thing, like going in the office, that not everybody has the ability to do it, but if you can, like I've experienced it as well, where you create that culture, it's just harder to create if you're not in office.
Yeah.
Right. Sales
not impossible,
process,
but harder. Yeah.
It's harder, right? Sales process is something that you can give across the entire, you can do virtually, you can do with Zoom trainings, Google Meets, all of those things. What did you guys see were like big changes in your actual numbers once you guys started implementing a sales process and tracking those metrics?
Well, number one is the number of dials that were going out.
Okay.
Like number of calls being made.
Yeah, we weren't managing our first acquisitions guy to a high enough clip. And we didn't know, like we didn't have and this is the thing that keeps coming in. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So when you get into a new process, it's like, you really don't know what are solid expectations to shoot for. And for us, we always are like undershooting it, like a lot. We're like thinking, okay, here's where we need to be at. But reality, you can be way the hell up here. And we just didn't think it was possible. And so basically our the first big mistake is that I should have stayed in acquisitions because that's what I was doing for a while. And that was the first thing I wanted to delegate out because I just had been doing it. I was getting burnt out. I should have sucked it up and stayed in there and stayed in that revenue generating activity longer. So we hired that out, and then we just did a good job managing that role and setting really solid expectations. And as we started to wisen up, we realized, yeah, man, this is a massive leaky bucket here. Like, we're not following the process. We're basically our guys working half days, so on and so forth. And we basically drew a line in the sand and said, if we don't meet these expectations, we're going to have to go a different route. That's what happened. So then I kind of filled back in. I was starting to get some deals locked in. We had sent out, used WiseHire to find a guy, and we were very particular about who we wanted to find because there's a million ways to screw that up, and there's just a few ways to do it really well. And then that's kind of how we found our first our acquisitions guy that's with us now. So yeah, I would say, figure out what your strengths are if you're kind of coming up, and then play to that, and then try to delegate everything else. I was trying to delegate my strengths once Matt was already in here. I was trying to delegate my strengths out first, and I should have stayed in that role longer, and I should have mastered it better because that would have made me a better sales manager, and that slowed us down.
In regards to the things that changed, definitely the quantity of calls that was being done, as well as the quality. And our quality is continuing to rise. It's risen the past 3 quarters in a row because we've had the same sales guy going on 3 quarters now, and it's getting better every quarter. And you measure your quality by the conversion ratio between those process and offer calls to contracts, so on and so forth.
I've got a side note to add to that too, because like one thing that we are seeing, you have a more in-person environment. We are more virtual, and you guys are being a little bit more selective on your appointments, and that makes sense because you have the bandwidth of like actually having to get out there. We are doing more appointments, though. Like you increase one conversion, but it actually could hurt your other. So like if for us, if we're increasing our offers made, then naturally our offers to offers accepted rate's going to go down, and so that's a balancing act. There's duality there. It's like you're not always going to see. If you do a 10% increase here, not everything else is going to stay consistent because that's just not how the world works. So,
and at the end of the day, your entire goal is to increase every single metric. But the number one thing that needs to continue, it's like a game of golf. If your lead to close deal is decreasing and your profit per deal is going up, you're becoming a better business, right? And so a lot of times we overcomplicate things by looking at all of the single metrics. Like, yeah, I'm making more offers and my conversions are going down, but hey, look how many leads turned into deals, right? And that number is going up. And if you're doing that, you know that you're moving in the right direction. So all this was super helpful, guys. I know we have a call review to go jump into. Tristan and Matt are in the advanced coaching group. They've got their acquisitions guys showing up on the call in 2 minutes from now. And so they're going to bring their calls. We're going to go analyze them and help them get better. So Tristan and Matt, thank you guys so much for coming on. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to drop a last minute little Tristan and Matt bomb for the audience?
I would say if you're looking for coaching, and depending on where you're deficient at, I think a lot of guys, they have their talents or where they're really good at, and then some things where they have opportunities of improvement. If you're looking for really good acquisitions training, and it's not just that, there's other things that John does really, really well at, but I think John's world-class in acquisitions, then I would definitely follow his content and see if you can get into the group.
I put a gun to his head and made him say that. So just so you guys know, that was completely staged. You guys can't see, but I'm in Tristan's office behind him with a gun, making him say that. So no, I appreciate that, guys. And I appreciate you coming on. I love seeing you guys crush it. I'm extremely excited to see you guys cross the $1 million mark this year and keep those high profit margins. So I will connect with you guys on the next call. This is the Zeroed In Podcast signing off.
See you
later, guys.
See you later.